This is the ArsenalVision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yank and Gunner. Yeah, I got a feeling we're going to be hearing that song quite a bit. At least I hope we're going to be hearing that song quite a bit. And I especially hope that it continues to gain in meaning as the tagline Kai Havertz scores again will hopefully be sung again and again and again as Kai Havertz scores again and again and again. A fun earworm born at Bournemouth just as the Saliba song was born at Bournemouth. And a much easier win 4-0 than our home affair with Bournemouth last season. So all good things. A 4-0 victory for Arsenal is what we're here to discuss, but I'm sure we will find the time to discuss what was, I think it's fair to say, not hyperbolic to say, a completely effing bonkers weekend of pure uncut Barclays. This was the crazy shit. This was VAR. Look, if you're VAR and you're going to wrong some clubs, wrong Arsenal, we'll sit there, we'll whine about it online, we'll take it. You can't wrong Liverpool. You can't do that because it becomes an international case. It becomes a case for Interpol. And we'll probably have to talk about that. I don't see how we can get away with not talking about that. We've got Champions League tomorrow. We did put out a poll over on Patreon. We will be doing our Power Rankings episode tomorrow. So you will be getting the Power Rankings episode where we rank the non-Arsenal top clubs. And it increasingly feels like it could be just a Schadenfreude, a hybrid podcast, certainly about Manchester United, maybe even a little bit about City. City without Rodri, not scary, he says, jinxing an upcoming match that may be in our near future. But jinxes don't exist. Just remember that. So lots of bonkers nonsense to cover. We will try to keep it mostly Arsenal-centric, but I think it's going to be impossible to avoid the conversations around the other things going on in the game. You'll get the Power Rankings tomorrow over on the Patreon. You'll probably get a rewatch at the back half of the week. You'll get an instant reaction for the Lawns game. And if you do want to hear me just absolutely wired from a great weekend of football, you can listen to the IR we did after the Bournemouth game. Just seemed like one of those days you wanted to be in the away end. I mean, it always seems like a day you probably want to be in the away end, but this one, it looked fun. And here to discuss the fun, the chance, the goals, the general madness happening around the world of football with me today is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
How you doing, bud?
Okay. Fresh back from the Emirates yesterday, watching the women's game. So, took a little bit away from the joy of Saturday, but hey, it's all Arsenal, right? It's all Arsenal.
I'm gonna do the crazy thing. I'm gonna start with this and just ask you this quickly. If you wanted to get the PGMOL sacked, if you wanted to get VAR rethought, if you wanted to affect change in the world of football, is there anything you could do more than slightly wrong Liverpool Football Club? You could do whatever you want in this game. You cannot wrong Liverpool Football Club. Boy, do they know how to organize. They put out a statement. It's pretty stunning, actually. And we'll get to all the Arsenal stuff. We're going to mostly go deep on Arsenal, but the club said that VAR and PGMOL has called the integrity of the competition into question. Now Sky Sports is putting out stuff. By the way, they put out a list of all the PGMOL apologies the last few seasons. I wouldn't read it if I were you, because by my math, there's about a 5-point swing in the title race from last season that would have gone to us. So best to avoid that. Clive, you just can't wrong Liverpool Football Club. It's that simple.
Yep, you're going down that pathway. I'm not sure I'm going to join you because
now I'll have them on me. Look, they were wronged. I mean, I'm not sure if that goal had stood that they get a result down to 9 men, but that's another story.
Yeah, they were desperately wronged. But as were Brighton at Spurs last year. Do you remember that one?
As were Wolves against United this year, as were we against Brentford last year without the lines being drawn. The whole thing is just not fit for purpose. For purpose is what it comes down to.
Well, what it does, it creates expectations in your mind which they can't reach. Once you bring technology in, you just have this word going for your mind that this must improve things. I don't expect human fallibility. Right? And when you have those expectations and you have human errors, then you go different places when they cost you points. Like the Brentford one last year. I was at that game, watched it, didn't really understand what happened. By the time I was in a press conference, I thought, oh, here's the story. And it just goes from there. And it just didn't cost us in the end, we think. It didn't cost. I was more upset about the Odegaard goal. Odegaard foul at Old Trafford led to Martinelli's goal. I was more upset about that. But the people in that ground don't often see a win up there, and I think we'd have won that game. That really bothers me, that did. But hey, look, I'm trying to be magnanimous about this. I don't know why, but I'm trying to be magnanimous about this.
Don't worry, I'll go the other direction, I promise.
I don't know why I'm trying to be out. I'm trying to be out, but we have a problem, don't we? We have a problem with the quality of person that are involved in this VAR discussion. There's an assumption that they have to be referees. And sometimes they're retired referees. Why is there an assumption? This shouldn't be a career opportunity for people we're not sure about. This should be a tool to improve the quality of the officialing of the game. And for me, it's not. It all feels a bit cozy people-wise. People will make mistakes in it. We will disagree over a sending off. The Curtis Jones one at the weekend, 50-50, mate. I'm not so sure about it, but then if you see it in certain angles, you could say, yes, that's the beauty of football. That is the soap opera that is football, right? But when you see the process issues caused by people who I question their individual caliber, that's my issue, really. And they're just allowed to continue without any sort of accountability. I don't want to see people find out a gun. I just want to see an effort to lift the quality of the people and train them. I also think they should be paid more. To not popping off to United Arab Emirates in between games. Pay them properly.
That can't happen. By the way, that can't happen.
It can't happen, but you know why they're doing it? Because they want more money. They don't get paid enough. They don't get paid enough. Pay them and then hold them accountable like you do, like anyone does for elite pay. Elite pay needs elite performance. Don't pay them pittances compared to what everyone else is getting in the Premier League and then expect them to be perfect. I'm trying to be magnanimous about this, but the quality is looking really poor. And Elliot, maybe because the Champions League game we was in last week or 2 weeks ago, was so easy, so smooth on the eye and ear. There's another way to do this. And I think we're getting it very, very wrong in England at the moment.
I can't remember the last Premier League match I watched between any two clubs where I didn't have just a number of head-scratching decisions throughout in terms of the consistency of the refereeing. The quality is poor. I don't care where you stand on VAR. It's the greatest thing ever. It's the worst thing ever. VAR is not a thing. VAR is just the opportunity for another human sat in a truck somewhere, a van, a cozy lounger, able to see video replays from multiple angles so that hugely contentious calls can be gotten right. For there to be a situation where the VAR assumes the goal has been given and says, if you're not aware of what happened, this is what happened. VAR looked, immediately saw it was onside and said, review complete, check complete. Because they thought the goal had been given. That can't happen. That is a nonsense. It absolutely cannot happen. Now, the things like the 2 red cards that Liverpool, I got no problem with it. You like them, you hate them, be my guest. Feel however you want. The straight red I have is a straight red. The second red card, okay, first yellow is soft. Second yellow is a yellow in my view. You can't dive in like that on a yellow. You can't do it. To be fair, then you got Udogie, I think it is, waving an imaginary card on the ground on a yellow, and he doesn't get one. So the consistency is in question. But that, to me, is normal refereeing stuff you got to live with in football. It's the VAR thing that can't happen. And ultimately, the problem with going to the United Arab Emirates, I'm sorry, Premier League, when you let countries own clubs, and then your referees go to those countries, and then they have head-scratching, inexplicable rulings. The VAR, who were in the UAE just that week, have inexplicable rulings that hurt a club perceived to be challenging the UAE-owned club. You have all the makings for a conspiracy. Do I think there's a conspiracy there? Candidly, I don't. But you can't even allow the suggestion of it, and then Liverpool lean in and say, this brings into question the integrity of the game. So now you've got one of your biggest clubs, one of your most vocal clubs, one of your most followed clubs around the world with a lot of friends in the media saying the integrity of the game is in question. And you've brought it upon yourself through the decision to use incompetent refs, underpay them, have them be allowed to go to trips to countries that own the clubs that they're going to then be refereeing essentially against, right, or in favor of. What it shows to me is poor process in terms of the organization and in terms of the hiring practice. These should be young, hungry people who are trying to show that they can move up in their career in football who are running VAR. People who see VAR as a stepping stone to a bigger thing in their career and want to impress so much in that job that the next job is there for them, that they have something to achieve. Not someone who's done with their career and just, I don't want to show up my pal on the pitch or, oh, you know what? I had one eye on the other game because my club's playing over there. You can't have this.
No.
You can't have these guys jetting off to the UAE and coming back running VAR. So we won't go too much further on this, Clive, but my feeling is, and I joked about it, but it is true. You wrong Liverpool, you see the reaction. And maybe this is a case of the straw that breaks the camel's back. But I think the situation with the PGMOL, with VAR, with refereeing in the Premier League does create the potential for a problem for a league that otherwise should be running away with popularity in the world. And to then go into the Champions League and just see the level it can be, or watch a World Cup and see the level it can be. And I know there have been some hideous mistakes in World Cups, but this can't happen. This can't happen. And I have a feeling something's going to have to change. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So at the end of last season, obviously the referees have had a meeting and they've decided what they want to focus on this season. They're going to focus on time wasting. And we get this, no one asked for it. Did anyone ask for it? We're going to focus on the yellow cards thing. We're going to focus on making sure only one person can stand in the box. Well, last time I looked, Eddie Howe had his mate standing right next to him, so that's faded away. Right? Do you know what I mean? And the only managers to be booked to the high-profile one to send a false message out there. You know, why Guardiola's in the stands and De Zerbi's been booked a load of times, and the Arteta rule has already cost him a couple of times. So they've decided what the people want. But I'll tell you what the people want. Good people doing the job. That's what the people want. Mm-hmm. A level of good process. That's what they want. Focus on the right things. Don't think you know what the problem is. Focus on the right thing. But if you focus on the right things, you're forced to look at your mates. You're forced to look inward. You're forced to look at your fraternity, your people, the ones that are a team within a team, shall we say, within the game. And they don't want to do that because that is really hurtful to them as individuals and people. So to leave themselves open, Elliot, and I think you're right. And I'll probably leave it there, mate, for now.
Yeah, I think so. It is. Look, on the one hand, I should have been laughing my ass off at that because it's pretty funny, right? I mean, not being on the wrong side. I cannot find it funny, even though it's Liverpool getting screwed and they're down to 9 men and their goals disallowed. I mean, not in that order, but like, I couldn't help but be angry because I know at some point it's going to be us on the other end of that again. And, the funny thing is, even if it balances out, let's say the old adage, it all balances out. It doesn't, but let's say it did. It's still a hollow answer. It doesn't make anyone feel better. So let's see where this goes. But they wrong the wrong club. Let me tell you, that is a club that knows how to organize, rally support in the media, and get changes made. And so we'll see if some changes get made. The results were great for us this weekend. I mean, United are in a tailspin. I still don't think Ten Hag makes it to Christmas. City showed that they're vulnerable without Rodri. No one's going invincible this season. I realize that the only team that could go invincible anymore is Arsenal. I mean, technically Spurs, but they can't because they're Tottenham. So everything's beautiful in the world of football. And the beautiful sunny day for us in Bournemouth was really special. And Clive, it starts with an interesting decision. The funny thing is, God bless Mikel Arteta, because you don't want the perfect day. The problem with the perfect day, Clive, is then every day has to be perfect to live up to it. So Mikel gave us something to complain about, moan about, argue about, and tear strips off each other about by giving us a lineup with Eddie up front and Jesus off the left, just like in the derby. And I'm sure, look, everybody was very happy to see Saliba able to be in the lineup and Saka able to be in the lineup and Declan Rice able to be in the lineup, starting to get healthy with that big game looming next weekend. This should have been a trap game. City fell in the trap. We certainly did not. But did you raise an eyebrow, the people's eyebrow perhaps, at the idea of Nketiah up front and Jesus off the left again after the performance in the derby?
Yeah, I thought a little bit of an eyebrow, but I do realise we're playing a series of games here. So as always, I try to explain it away to myself. So what's he done that for? And funny enough, it did sort of come up in the game. I'm not sure if you're going to cover it, but how we use an exit on our left-hand side using our goalkeeper, etc. I think it's really interesting. Do you remember the Spurs game, Elliot, when Raya was getting pressed in the middle of his goal and onto his left foot, and he gave the ball away a number of times in particular the second half. and Ramsdale had a similar experience in the cup game, not massively. And I did say at the time they're going to come up with a new pattern, probably drop away into their box, because that's the way you do it, right? You say to people, you're going to come in here. Are you going to come all the way in here? And next game, what do Arsenal do? Drop right into their box. But particularly the way Raya played outside of his goal, outside the width of the sticks, to be like an outfield player, to really give us an overload back there, and then we play out and we go from there, knowing that Bournemouth are going to press us, in a juvenile way. They're going to press us, and it worked, right? So to add to that, to go back to your point about Jesus playing left, if we do have to exit and we are being a left-sided bias and people are cutting off our right side, having our post-up centre forward playing left wing is not the worst option, because then he can receive it, turn around, and then we're off to the races. That's how I explain it to myself. I'm not sure that is the explanation, but you look at these things. We don't make the game plan. We don't make the game model. But if I'm trying to explain why Jesus isn't playing centre forward, that's the best I've got, mate. That's the best I've got. Because you got Havertz, Jesus in that left-hand corner. Once we suck people in, then you clip it and you hit them too, then you're off. That's the only way I can explain it. But apart from that, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think the explanation is as simple as availability, right? I mean, I think Jesus is available. Eddie is available. Mikel was pretty clear after the League Cup that both Nelson and Smith-Rowe are building up fitness. And I don't think Mikel wants to start with players that he knows can't go 90 if he needs them to, that are going to need to come off at 60 or 70 minutes. I think if he felt Nelson was at full fitness, raring to go, maybe he would have done something else. But I think he did what was available to him given the selection. And also maybe with an eye towards all change for Lens. I think, Mikel has not always been the biggest rotator, we know.
Yeah.
I think he has his eye on City. And I think he knows how important that game is. And I do think he will try to leverage every advantage he can get going into the City game, because we play Tuesday in what should be a more straightforward game than City have away at Leipzig on Wednesday. And they won't have Rodri or De Bruyne. If we can go in as full strength and rested and ready as possible, it's a big advantage. And so he might try to utilize Smith-Rowe and Nelson from the start in France. We'll see about that. But this was an interesting game in a way, Clive, because I have I take notes as I watch just so I can try to reconnect to the game when we're podcasting later and things like that, because sometimes you remember the big moments and you forget the flow. I have a lot of notes of like sloppy giveaway, build up a little ponderous, a little slow. It wasn't our slickest best, but one thing I notice, we're just building up a lot more around the edges, around the outsides. And it starts with Raya, right? Who I thought was a really critical component of this game. His passing was excellent. People I think are struggling to judge Raya because he's not diving across his box, having to make tons of saves. But what he's doing in terms of where he's playing outside of his box as a sweeper and his distribution, in the half spaces, he played a few passes, I think, maybe to Kai, one to Zinchenko running up the seam where we were able to get away from pressure. But we're building up a lot on the outsides, and Zinchenko and Raya were really important. I thought Rice was maybe a little less emphasized in this game. Eddie, because he's not Jesus, is not going to drop in and connect through the middle as much. Are you noticing that pattern that we're trying to build up a little more on the wings? Is it to protect ourselves from losing the ball? What do you think is causing that? Because there's a lot of wide buildup.
Yeah, I think it's been away for a while, to be honest, Elliot, and that you don't want to lose the ball in the centre, because when you do, people are going straight to the heart of your team. So people on the outside, you want to clear the entry pass into your forwards if you can by stretching out their midfield, and they want to block you in the middle. So we say, you want to block the middle? Then we're going to take the ball on the outside then, and then we're going to build up here. You want to block the middle because you're a lower team to us on a lower budget, then that's fine. But we're going to come at you in waves in the middle, right? So to go out, to come back in, right? So I'm trying to re-educate myself, and hopefully to re-educate myself on the basis that basically every single game we play is different. And that's the way it feels to me. I mean, Spurs were very much a team that built up from the back, so we pressed them with a different game plan, and Bournemouth for the weekend were a team that wanted to press, wanted to create issues in our half, and we created a different game plan for them. And I just think that's the way it's going to be. Manchester United quite similar to Spurs, where they kept the ball in their area. We waited a little bit more to try and get them on the transition and test their running speed backwards, because some of their highly paid midfielders don't want to run backwards. So sit off in the mid block, wait for them, take it, and then go. I think we've had different game plans for every game. I really feel we've always been a well-coached team, but I think our analysis is much improved. I think we focus a lot on us and how we played last year and really perfecting our game plan. Now it's like, okay, now our principles are in. Let's look at the opposition and let's adjust our game plan, if not our principles, to the opposition. Hence why I don't worry about it being different. I just know we're going to come up with a solution. Some of the set-piece solutions we've seen this season have been game-winning. So this is all based on good analysis and good coaching to get those messages into the players so they can execute it. So yes, we build up on the outside. Yes, there are things that are changed this year because the personnel has changed. So we had a brief discussion last week, didn't we, about Rice and Partey and difference in their passing styles and what they want to do. And that really just forces Rice maybe a pass earlier in the game plan. Whereas Thomas Partey will slice right down the centre areas, and then we might go out higher up. Then we're really by the edge of the area. So there has been stylistic change based on the personnel. And I think based on the rhythm by what we want to play at this time of the year, I don't think we want to play super fast all the time. I think we're trying to control the pace and the economical impact to our physical form, given the fact we are now in the Champions League stretch of the season. I think it's just a little bit calmer.
Yeah, I definitely see a difference in the way Rice plays a position versus Partey. I think that is a big part of the dynamic, by the way. And that's not me saying Rice plays it worse. I think Rice is willing to be more of a wall passer, more of a conservative passer. I think Rice cleans up more. We certainly saw even in this game when he covers the ground and closes down the lanes to access attackers or, to get 1v1 versus our defenders. He travels better in defensive situations and he recovers the ball better. He doesn't try as many adventurous sort of dagger ball progressive passes to break the lines in the way the Partey does. I think when he carries, his carries are more distant straight line carries, whereas Partey will, get out of a phone box, right, of three guys around him, trick his way past and then stab the ball forward to Odegaard. It's just a very different dynamic and they do it in different ways. So I think we lose maybe a little bit of central progression with Partey not being there. And interestingly, we lose it a little bit in that right half space where Partey likes to occupy. And that's how we get to Odegaard and how we get to White and how we get to Saka. So it's going to go through different people. In this game, Rice had a lot of passes, but a lot to defenders, a lot, lateral passing. Zinchenko winds up with so much of the ball progression role. And I don't have a problem with that because he's absolutely brilliant at it. And he was brilliant at it again this game. But it's funny, Clive, how we talked about this after the derby, right? The big Jesus missed chance. It's always the way in football, right? Big Jesus missed chance. What happens next? They score.
Yep.
In this game, Clive, so when I keep my notes, I bold the important things. Back to back, here's what I bolded. Now, they're not back to back in terms of minutes, but they're pretty close. Saliba recovery tackle, Saka scores. And I feel like, it's just how football works, right? Saliba makes that critical. You remember he makes that critical challenge. He goes to ground in the box to get it away, I think, from Solanke. And then a few minutes later, we have really a lovely move. Odegaard gets it to Jesus at the back post. I think his header is a good one. I think he's trying to score. It winds up going off the post. Saka heads in. Eddie did really well in the buildup to that goal. He gets the ball, he sprints away, he gets it to Odegaard. Really good. That's kind of what Jesus does, right? Back into a defender, turns the man, sprints away. Really, really good from all of them. And I know it's an easy one, Clive, but it is Saka who so often makes that critical moment happen in a game to get the lead. Because 1-0 is so important, right? Getting the lead, especially for the way we play, so important. What do you think about that goal in general? Because I think there's a lot of really nice stuff. What Eddie does, Odegaard's pass to Jesus at the back post, Jesus' header, and then Saka scores.
Yeah, so the goal's a recognised Arsenal pattern, shall we say. We've seen that before. But where Saka is changing is that the way he travels into the box after, he doesn't just knock off. When the cross goes into Jesus, he doesn't just say, well, I'm playing out here, I'll just sit here. he puts himself into areas where something could happen, and he gets a deflection and he nods it in. It's like a 6 yard box job, and he's thinking, just laughing because he's got a header. But he's took the gamble, right? He's gambled inside, and he hasn't just sat there admiring the play. And that's where he's different, and that's where he takes responsibility. And it's always him that does the first action, which is why he's played 110 games in a row, right? I worry about it. He's always the first one to make the run, to get the free kick, to get the corner, to do something which gets us going. And he takes that responsibility on at his age. I think it's incredible, right? The rest of it we're sort of used to. Excuse me. The rest of it we're sort of used to. I think his growing maturity and what he does to carry us, we need to be looking at it a bit. We've sort of grown used to it. Now we're fearful of it. So every time he goes down, it becomes a discussion point. And are we using him correctly? I don't know if we are, Elliot, but I also don't I want him to be on the pitch all the time. So that's the dilemma that we have. I've just seen something with Kieran Tierney being injured again in Spain. This is a classic example of a player that was played a lot when he was young, and I mean a lot. And his injuries are starting to catch up with him a little bit. And I'm speculating a little bit there, but I'm always conscious of the players that really peak early, that they could end early, and I want us to be a little bit smarter. But Lazarus keeps rising, doesn't he? He was limping around the pitch at Bournemouth, and there he is in Champions League training today. No problem at all.
With guys on his back. Why are all the training pictures of guys on guys' backs? Get off their backs, please.
Exactly. And he's
always
there
doing piggyback rides. Like, stop it.
He's smiling away. Can't wait for the next game. Right? It's very difficult, isn't it? It's very difficult for me to sit like a concerned fan and say, I think you should have a rest, Bukayo. What do I know, right? He's thinking, I want to play Champions League. I want to be there. And it's very difficult. But I do have an Elliot type worry about the amount of minutes that are piling into him. Before I knew you, I wouldn't be caring about minutes played. I'd just be looking at it.
Happy to help, buddy.
So now I've got something to worry about. But I look forward to the day where he can rest. When he doesn't rest, I tend not to blame Arteta. I tend to blame Southgate because he's not Arsenal. I say, all right, Southgate, it's a friendly, and I think England play Italy in the international break. Please, can he sit for the friendly at least? Because that's what I'm hoping for.
And maybe Eddie could get some minutes. Who knows?
Ollie Watkins, mate.
Let's talk about, I think, two of the biggest moments in the game are penalty moments. I love that we're getting penalties, by the way. That's a beautiful thing. I don't know, there was certainly some brain-dead decision-making from Max Aarons when Eddie goes down. I think this is a really, really interesting situation. I don't think we've ever seen this, Clive, where we just have sort of a flexible penalty taker. I guess under Arsene Wenger used to have it, right? The guy who got fouled didn't take the penalty. That was sort of the dynamic. But we've gone to a more traditional situation the last several years where you have sort of a designated penalty taker. So when we get the first penalty, I have no idea who's going to take it. I thought it's going to be Saka or Odegaard. It's Odegaard. Let's touch on that one first. It's a really well-struck penalty. I mean, if we had one penalty to take with the Champions League on the line, he might be trending towards being the guy I'd pick, assuming Jorginho's not on the pitch. Where are you with that? Let's start with that. The Odegaard-Saka thing. Saka decides to give it to Odegaard. Saka's already got his goal. Odegaard gets to have his. I wonder if Saka hadn't scored yet, if he would have chosen to take it. But what do you think of the situation between them where they seem to be sharing the duty there?
Yeah, again, I quite like it. It didn't bother me in the slightest when they hit the back of the net. When they don't hit the back of the net, Elliot, note it on your menu. Note it on your menu that I may change your mind. But again, it just comes back to analysis, doesn't it? It's everything about this team is saying we're going to be difficult to play against. So we sat here last year talking about the lessons learned, saying, we did we get sussed out towards the end of the season? When we lost people, we had no plan B. You know what I mean? And off the ball, we weren't really strong enough. Well, off the ball, we're looking pretty good. We've got a number of plans developing. We even got 2 goalkeepers, for God's sake, and now we've got we've got multiple penalty takers, and there was discussions there with Jesus as well. Maybe Jesus fancied one of those penalties. So you add Jesus and Havertz into the whole thing, and suddenly you got 4 penalty takers.
You can't give Jesus a penalty, mate. You've seen him take penalties. Don't give that guy a penalty. I love Jesus. He's my favorite.
So,
don't give him a penalty.
We're talking about 4 penalty takers in recent times, right? That have played, taking one in a proper game. So yeah, it's just part of the whole principle of not being so easy to analyze. Although I do think what I've noticed this year a lot more in-game changes. So teams are coming in with multiple plans and they're implementing them in the game and seeing how we adapt. And so the skill of adapting to other people's plan and other teams adapting to us in game. So it's becoming more of a phased game model where we're just sort of doing certain things on this phase and then doing other things on this phase to try to get the superiority of the scoreline, and then we manage the game out. I think there are multiple plans in every single game, and the speed by which people make changes is interesting. There was one last week when Brighton played Manchester United, and Manchester United are blocking the middle. Brighton play a narrow, progressive game, and Man United were doing quite well. De Zerbi changed the game plan, went to the outside. The rest is history, right? Man United get beaten. So this is what's happening in the game today, and I think Arteta is just trying to be harder to read.
Yeah. So the moment of the day is the Kai Havertz penalty. Thanks to Odegaard being like rugby tackled down, just like knees and ankles and the clumsiest shit ever. By the way, I should say before that, there's going to be a lot of attention on how Raya plays as a passer and the importance of his role, where he stands, how he plays as sweeper, all the stuff we've talked about. Yeah. It is worth noting that at 45 plus 4 at 2-0, going into halftime at 2-0 is huge, right? The game should be dead, and you don't give the home support any reason to get up for it. I mean, all you could hear was Arsenal away supporters, and I cannot emphasize how much fun it sounded like they were having and how great the away support was. It's a tiny away end. Not many people get to make that trip. They made the most of it. But Raya had a huge save at 45 plus 4. And those are the saves you have to make to keep that 2-0 instead of 2-1. Because I can think of games away where Liverpool at Anfield comes to mind more than anything. You give them that goal that gives them something to hold on to, and it changes everything. Now, Bournemouth are not Liverpool, but that's another story. But then we do get the Kai moment. I'm not going to read all of the Mikel quotes. There are so many. You can seek them out. But Mikel had a lot of comments to make about how he's so impressed. I'll read a couple. The other thing that pleased him, apart from the win, is the human level of what they've done today as a team, to give the penalty to their teammate and have the empathy for a player like Kai, who is externally having some question marks, and that level of trust to take it and win the game for us. As a manager, I'm more proud of this than the victory, because this is what you try to build. The culture and environment, they support each other, have their backs, and enjoy what they were doing. It's worth it. It's real, and it's not forced. They made the decision and showed the leadership without me even telling them. That's so much more powerful. And thank you to our supporters, because the way they have supported our team and Kai is going to mean the world for him. He went on to say he thinks it will change everything. And this is the thing about support, right? This is where I really, really believe you draw the line. To come on a podcast or go on social media or write a blog or however you share your thoughts in the pub, criticism and question marks, totally understandable. But then to show up in the ground and make that kind of noise and sing that kind of song and really get behind the player, that's the duality of fandom, right? You can complain in the pub, you go to the ground and you cheer them on. And that moment feels like it could be very big, Clive. So what's your take on that it happened at all? And if it might mean a little bit more than just the goal he scored?
Yeah, I was so pleased that it happened, and it sort of came out of the blue. But as soon as you saw it, you thought, "Oh my god, this feels right." Then you go, "Oh my god, I hope he scores." You go to that emotion.
Were you nervous?
Quickly.
I was so nervous. I can't. Yeah. Why was I so nervous? So nervous.
Well, we see your memory plays tricks on you, and Kai Havertz can take penalties, but we forget everything, don't you? You just think you need to score this. You need to score this, and the reason why, because people need this metric. They need the metric of a goal, and it just helps create a bit of space for him. I've said we had many conversations, Elliot, so excuse me if I'm repeating myself, but he is improving. He's been improving for the last 3 or 4 games, and I've seen it. I'm not just making it up. I'm looking at him thinking, okay, what's happening here? And he's starting to feel more part of the team. Physically, he's doing really, really well. He's one of those early games, I think it might have been Fulham, when he set the ball back, he was square on, he set the ball back when he had 15 yards to turn. He wasn't even receiving the ball on the half turn. He was that conscious of keeping it. And everyone shouted, turn, and he set it off. I'm not sure if he went to foot or not. Now, if you watch him, he's on the half turn. He's got a lovely little turning circle. So he turns out, turns back on himself and creates continuity. So he's starting to now, you can play through him. You could always, I know it sounds crazy. You could always play through Granit Xhaka. You've got to play through him. One touch, bang, it's gone. So now he can play through him. He's moving the ball quickly. And he's just starting to have an influence. He's got lovely feet. And defensively, he surprised many of us, right? So it's just offensively, he just needs to be a little bit more decisive and have the final actions. And I'm hoping this is the window to opening up that bit. I find him interesting. And someone used the word, I thought even better than interesting. I find him a fascinating player. And the ones that are more difficult to work out are the ones that fascinate me the most. He's a unique physical profile. He's got a unique skill set. If you can apply him appropriately, which you can do to different roles and different ways and different parts of the pitch, that's an interesting player to me. He needs to do it. Some people say, I don't care, Clive, he costs this amount, he's getting this money, he needs to be doing more than this. And his numbers do need to improve. But you can see why Real Madrid looked at him. You can see why Arsenal went for him, because he is a player of interest. You just have to unlock him. You have to unlock him consistently. And I think the fans in the ground, the fans around the world that have been supporting him, realise he's just a young man trying to settle into our team. And the best way for him to settle is to support him. And that's what they're really trying to do. Boiling on over support. And I think, I don't mind that, right? But I think about 3-4 weeks ago, Arteta went to a press conference to support him and asked for this from the fans, and the fans have responded. And I think Havertz's performances are improving. So let's hope that continues. And let's see where this all ends up, because I think he's an important player for our season.
Yeah, look, it's not school football. He's got to perform. And he has to perform not just okay, he has to perform brilliantly. That's what he's there to do. There are a lot of players in that team that will perform brilliantly, and he will be expected to do that as well. But it's a journey, and you don't have to be at the destination right at the beginning. I mean, it is still so early in this marathon of a season. And, Tim always made this point. I remember one summer, I think Tim said it about Sambi even. He's like, you watch, he's going to be player of the month for August or whoever. And sure enough, it happened. It may not have been Sambi. It was some new signing. He said the new signing is always the player of the month right away. Rob Holding famously, right, was I'm sorry he didn't cost $50 million, right, from Arsene Wenger. I mean, these players come in, they make an immediate impact, and everyone thinks we've won the transfer window. But the goal isn't to win the transfer window, it's to win the league, it's to win the Champions League. And so Kai has gone a bit the other direction, and this can happen. I am old enough to remember last summer when Nunez was the star of the summer and Haaland was going to be the blunder of the summer because he missed his chances in the Community Shield and Nunez looked like a killer. Now, to be fair, Nunez might still be a killer, but at the end of the day, Haaland turned out to be a passable Premier League player. And, I'm happy for him because I read a lot of articles that really scared me about how City are worse with Haaland. Oh, was that scary? Thank goodness that turned around. I guess it wound up being okay in the end. I mean, I'm kidding, but my point is, it is way too early to judge this stuff. And maybe getting this goal, getting that off his back, hearing the support, maybe it takes the worry away from him so he can just focus on execution and not carry the weight of the price tag and the cannon and the expectation. We'll see what it does. I want to just ask you super quick. I don't like to do meta commentary, but there's this like weird narrative, and I don't mean weird like some random Manchester United blogger or something. I mean some major mainstream media platforms going with the idea that it was somehow disrespectful that Arsenal gave Kai the penalty, or unprofessional, or silly, or what. Like there was some weird criticism. It's just noise. I understand it's noise, but is there anything to this? There's sometimes I see these media narratives where I'm like, well, I hate it because I'm an Arsenal fan, and then sometimes I see media narratives that I absolutely have no idea what the hell they're on about, and this was one of them.
Yeah, I didn't see that. But this is not the first time it's happened where a striker who has not scored for a while gets given a penalty to get him going again. right? So, and that's happened many, many times in football. This is not unique. Havertz hadn't scored for 20 games. So that's a long time, right? So if you see him as a scorer, that's a long time. And I think it's important he has this. So I'm not too worried about that. I think the things we should focus on is the human aspect of the club, really, the values of the team, the values of our skipper, the values of those 1,400 people in that away end, which were brilliant. And,
what do you think of the song?
It's great, right? It's great. It's been in my head too much this weekend. I'm looking like Lou Bill this morning. I keep thinking about it in the nighttime. Can't sleep. So basically,
by the way, there's the new Odegaard song is a banger too, but the Kai one has overshadowed it.
Yeah, I just think the whole atmosphere around the club is so much more joyous than it has been. Hey, look, I know 2 of the wrong defeats can change that really quickly. I mean, it really can. But as you said to it, just enjoy the good times, right? When they're here, just enjoy them, because it can change real quick with a bad decision, as Liverpool are finding out today. And when you really have then got something to moan about.
Yeah, one of the things that I think we do that's a mistake as fans, right? And I say this as someone who's part of a podcast where we deeply analyze and attempt to analyze all our games all the time at a very granular level, then rewatch them, then reanalyze them again, is we sometimes deny ourselves the chance to just enjoy the fun, exciting, big moments when they come. This weekend was, I think, as fun as it's going to get in football for Arsenal fans, right? There was a pretty ridiculous game between Liverpool and Spurs. There was United losing. There was City losing. There was us winning big. There's Kai getting his goal. And while there's a lot of analysis we can do on this, that, and the other thing, being able to just say this was a hell of a lot of fun is super important. I do, however, want to analyze a handful of other things from this game and look ahead. I think that there's some questions now about how we manage the game, because there's a game tomorrow. It is really crazy. Tuesday Champions League games, I forgot how quick they sneak up on you. Because you watch the football weekend. There's going to be a Chelsea game later today. I think they might actually, unfortunately, win a game finally. And then you've got, and by the time you listen to this, you may know if I'm right or wrong about that. And then we're playing tomorrow. So it's just wild how quickly that comes up. But I got to tell you, it is fall. Like, it's crazy how quickly that happens. I was walking around the neighborhood and the leaves are changing. And I don't know if where you are it's fall, because where you are, you may not have fall, or fall may be the other side of the year. But whatever it is, we are brought to you today by Manscaped, who has taken a step up from Balloween to bring your face the cleanest shave it's ever seen. That's right. I always thought this was interesting. Manscaped is a company we've obviously talked about a lot on this pod in the past. I really like them. I like their products. I use them. And as I've always said, everybody does some grooming down there. Most people do, and you need tools purpose-built for that, and Manscaped gives you that. But, facial hair is a big part of life as a man, and you want to trim it. And I've had trimmers that are no good. The battery dies or the blades catch. So finally, Manscaped now has a full array of tools for your face. Now, don't use the ones you use on your downstairs area on your face. They're purpose-built. Do it the right way. So you have the Handyman and the Beard Hedger. The Handyman is a shaver. I love it. It is so compact. It's waterproof. Immensely long battery life. So what I'll do sometimes is, especially on my neck, where nicks and cuts and razor burns can be a huge problem, I'll use it on my neck. You can use it in an airplane, right? It's so compact that, if you're on the go and traveling a lot and you just want to freshen up, you can do that. So it is a cordless trimmer. You're going to love it. Then there's the Beard Hedger. The Beard Hedger is a trimmer. So the Handyman is a shaver. The Beard Hedger is a trimmer. There are 20 hair cutting lengths with one guard. Okay, 20 different hair cutting lengths. And the Beard Hedger is something that you could do eyebrows even with it. You could do your sideburns, or you could do your beard. So you got all that, plus all the great products you'll have already. You get 20% off and free shipping with the code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code ArsenalVision for a look as sweet as candy. Get yourself the Handyman from Manscaped. I don't know. That's what they're saying. We'll see how that goes. Now, we have a new friend to the pod. We like new friends. Do you like new friends? These new friends want to give you 50% off. So that's cool. Plus free shipping. And this new friend is HelloFresh. What is HelloFresh? With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's number one meal kit, by the way, so it can become your number one meal kit as well. Look, I have 2 kids. We fall into the trap of cooking the same thing over and over again, or worse, ordering food. Ordering food is expensive. It is lazy, I'll admit. It's not a good way to budget your calories. It's not a good way to get the nutritional quality you want from a meal. A home-cooked meal is great, but figuring out what to shop for, what to make, what ingredients you need, making sure they're fresh, making sure they have all the different nutritional components that a meal should have, absolute pain in the neck. The pain in the neck is going and planning it and doing all that. Putting it together is easy. HelloFresh makes it easy, okay? So you can keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every single week, so there's always something delicious to discover. They do in-season ingredients, so you taste the freshness of fall, for example, in every bite. And produce travels from the farm to your door for peak ripeness. Okay, I think these are a great idea. These fun recipes that you can make at home without having to do all the planning and thinking it up and shopping for it. It gets you the right nutritional value. It gets you the ability to have a home fresh meal. So go to HelloFresh.com/50ArsenalVision and use code 50ArsenalVision. That's 50ArsenalVision for, this is why it'll make sense, 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh.com/50ArsenalVision and use code 50ArsenalVision. That's HelloFresh.com/50ArsenalVision. Code 50ArsenalVision. There's a lot of 50ArsenalVision there, but, you got to do it, and that's how it works. And, of course, it wouldn't be an ArsenalVision podcast if we didn't tell you that when you were trying to build the perfect team, you need the perfect talent, and the company that builds you the perfect team at your business is Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place instead of spending hours. This is the thing. Why would you go to multiple sites? Like, we figured this out with travel, right? These travel aggregators where you go to one site and it finds you all the flights. Indeed lets you spend less time going to one site that's a powerful hiring partner that lets you do it all. The one I love is Instant Match. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data. So I love Indeed because you can find the right talent, you can invite the right talent to apply. That means the person looking for a job finds the best job, and the person hiring finds the best candidate. Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest in 2019. So join the 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports and support the show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Jobs just apply. Need hire? You need Indeed? Clive? Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Now, all right. We are up and running. What you will not know at this moment is that we had terrible technical difficulties. But before I did the ad read and in the intervening period, it's just been tragic, terrible, horrible, absolutely awful. But we move, as the kids say. And we're doing just fine, thanks. Clive, I think the one thing that seems to drive people nuts right now, obviously injuries are a big concern. Before we move on from this game and look forward, Jesus finished the game seemingly a little banged up. He went in, he had a chance. God, it was so well fashioned, and he just needed to lift it over the keeper instead. To his credit, I think he was unselfish. He tried to slide it across the goal mouth, and it was knocked out. But then it was cut out, and then he seemed to hurt himself going over. Obviously, Bukayo Saka picked up another knock. He picks up one every game. He's already been seen in training, as you've said. But how do you feel about Jesus going the distance in this game? The way the players are managed, the way we're using substitutions. I think the big one, obviously, is Emile Smith-Rowe. So we'll come on to the Smith-Rowe of it in a moment. But what do you think about the subs and where we are with fitness and how we're managing that?
Yeah, so Jesus is training as well. So I don't think he's injured. So that's a good sign. So everyone's in training apart from Timber and Martinelli. So whatever's happening, whether we're getting away with it or we're reading too much into the stuff we're all hearing. But, I'd have liked him to have less time on the pitch. I'm less concerned, Elliot. My big thing when we were looking for 5 subs was getting 5 subs. We got 5 subs, which means the coach can now affect the game. He can take off half of our full players, and with Arteta, he might take off his goalkeeper, right? So yeah, we can make those changes. So I'm not remotely concerned about this, really, based on the fact that they have the information that we don't have, and I try not to worry too much about it. You can't help but think ahead to see, but I'm used to it again. Every time we have this game, someone's out on the Saturday night, you get a message come through, it's like, oh, okay. pre-City again, we lose somebody important. We just got to get there. But we got to get there by just knocking off nuns and making sure that we're in shape. But we can make those changes in the bench. It comes back to the support crew at this moment in time. What sort of shape are they in? Are they developing into this team appropriately? Are they getting enough time and minutes? This was their period. So in the first phase of the season, we were playing one game a week. The team looked quite settled, apart from the Gabriel stuff, and wait for Zinchenko to come back in. The team was quite settled. Lose party, we resettle again. So we're into a smallish group in the one game a week crew. Then we come into the next block before the next international break, where we are literally playing 3 times in 7-8 days. So that opens up the squad. And it opens up the question marks, opens up all of us talk about substitutions. Another thing that I just can't be bothered about, because we're never going to agree on substitutions, particularly if we draw the game or don't win a game. We're never going to agree on it, and it's just the way of the fan, shall we say? But we have these options now. So the key thing for me, looking over the season, is the development of that crew: the Vieira, Smith-Rowe, Nelson, Eddie. You want to put Havertz in there, you can. Trossard, that group that's on our bench that are real live players. How active are they? Jorginho, how active are they? How many minutes are they getting? Are they cold when they come in? Do they know their roles? Do they know what we expect of them? Are they not stepping on the ball in North London derby because they're cold? This is the stuff that's going to be important. And so these moments now are keeping those players alive and engaged and warm and part of it. Okay, everyone wants to play more time, but it is what it is, Elliot. I just want to see us use the bench as we have done. It's never going to please everyone, but I think the intention is good, and we just have to trust the people in control.
Yeah, I mean, point blank, that's it. This is one of those situations where, look, I'm not saying, the club always has the right idea. They always know what they're doing. You always have to believe that they're correct. But in situations where we have very little information, I tend to think we're going to try to do the right thing. I mean, look, there was some suggestion that we would have no Declan Rice in this game and no William Saliba in this game and no Bukayo Saka in this game. And as it turns out, we had all 3 of them. And Trossard was on the bench. Yep. And Thomas Partey's been pictured in training today. The only one I think that's going to miss City as it stands right now is Martinelli.
Yep.
And I feel for Gabby because, I think, obviously he didn't probably get off to the hot start to the season that he wanted to. And as things start to improve for us, I'm sure, these are the things he misses. He wants to play in the Champions League. He's going to want to play against Manchester City. He's going to miss that. Looks like he's going to miss getting his Brazil call up, which I guess is a bit of a silver lining in some respects. But the big thing from the end of this game, I mean, I know, by the way, Ben White scores a beautiful backwards header, skimmed off top of his head from an Odegaard free kick. Really lovely for Ben White, who was brilliant again and somehow finds a way to be excellent in so many games without ever being discussed. But it's a testament to his quality that I think we take it for granted at times. But I think the Emile Smith-Rowe cameo is a really interesting one. He looked lively. He had a really good chance to score. I think it's a save. I mean, obviously the keeper gets a hand to it.
Yeah.
I think it's going in. Yeah, no, I mean, I know he gets a hand to it, but I think it's going in. It's a fantastic save. The thing that's more interesting to me, though, that I think leads to a thing that we should touch on, there is a video going around of him looking absolutely crestfallen at full time, having to be consoled by Zinchenko and by the coaches. I'm not going to go so far as to say he's crying per se, but it looks as though he's struggling emotionally with that miss. I presume that's what had him upset because there's nothing else to be upset about. We won 4-0. He played well in his cameo. But, what do you think about that? I mean, the emotions can be an obstacle in football. And, I think sometimes we complain that footballers are arrogant. Footballers are disconnected from reality. They have to be. They have to be arrogant. They have to have the memory of a fruit fly. They have to believe they're the greatest thing since sliced bread because you are under such intense scrutiny. You're going to miss so many chances. You're going to make so many mistakes. That's just life. You have to be able to go out there and believe every time you're on the pitch you're the best player. And I realize it's not easy, and we've heard players talk about mental health. Per Mertesacker talked about it after he retired. Kieran Tierney a little bit we've heard from. And any thoughts about what Smith-Rowe's going through right now, again, without speculating, and I'm not talking about depression or anything, but just from the video you saw and from where he is in his Arsenal career right now, what he's facing to try to get back to the top level, because the talent, I don't think, is in question from anybody.
Yeah, I think it's just down to individuals' emotional maturity. I'd rather not speculate on that photograph because it could mean anything. But I did see an interview last week with Smith-Rowe.
To be clear, I'm talking about the video. Did you see the video?
No.
Right?
No, I've not seen the video.
Okay, so there is a video where he's kind of got his face in his shirt and his head's down, and Zinchenko's trying to like grab him and say, "Hey, it's going to be like," you can really see, and the coaches are coming over to him. He's really down and he's trying to be consoled. So again, I'm not trying to speculate on his mental state at all, but in that moment, clearly something has affected him. You know? Yeah,
and where I was going with this, Elliot, I haven't seen that, but what I have seen is an interview last week after, I think it was the midweek game at Brentford, and it's just an interview in the mix zone with a number of reporters that we all know, and on the Arsenal beat, and you can see that it's a very quiet, shy young man, and that just made me think, okay, you know, some footballers are cocky and brash and Instagram kings, and some people are not. And just like everyone that's listening to this today, work with people or interact with people with different personalities, football is exactly the same. And you can see that he's a quiet, shy lad. And that just tells me, what I said after that interview was, we need to give him time. There's everybody trying to place him in the team instead of this guy because they love him. My view is the people around him that know him best, that see him every single day, will know when he's ready, both physically and emotionally ready. And he's getting more and more minutes now in the 3 games a week slot. And that was always the intention. And I'm hoping that it goes well for him. And that's it. I don't know how this is going to end. He's another player fighting to get into the team. And there's a few of them, isn't there? Including the England goalkeeper, fighting to get into the team. This is elite sport where competition is exactly what we want it to be, which is tough. You know, we don't want, you know, it's great the fact that we saw Charles Sago Jr. get a debut, but we had this level of youth player going into Newcastle away 18 months ago, you know, to fight for the top 4. You know, the whole landscape has changed, the competitive landscape has changed, and these players have to deal with it, right? So my thoughts on Smith-Rowe is, I can't wait to see him smiling again. That's the key thing, you know. That's the key thing. We're all talking about how happy it all was at the weekend for everybody. I can't wait to see him smiling again on a consistent basis because he feels confident in himself, in his physique, in his body, etc. A big operation. It's a long road back. It's a long time not doing the thing that he's been doing since he was a kid. And I just want to hope he gets back to his normal self. And I don't want to speculate further than that, Elliot, to be honest.
Yeah, and just to be clear, because I think this is important, I don't think it ever makes sense to speculate on someone's mental health. That's not my point. My point, though, is I think it is fair to speculate that he's going through a hard time in his footballing situation right now, and that you can see that it's impacting him. And clearly, whatever is going on in that video, and if you want to seek it out and look at the video, something has got him quite down. The speculation is that it's the missed opportunity to score, you know, which would have been a great moment for him. And I know the away fans were desperate for that to happen, as I think many of us were. I think it will be interesting. Mikel, whenever he speaks about him, talks about, you know, needing to get his level to a consistent place and needing to get himself fit enough that he can be relied on. I would expect, Clive, that he has a big part to play tomorrow as we sit here recording this against Lens. So this Lens team, look, we'll wrap it up by saying this. We win 4-0. It is nearly the picture-perfect day for Arsenal. We get through it actually seemingly with good fitness. We go into training now with all our players coming back. We get a big 4-0 on a weekend where everybody else really struggles and suffers and has big catastrophic moments. Our position in the table suddenly looks great. Suddenly the fact that we have not yet been defeated this season feels much more significant than maybe it had just a week ago. The whole mood shifts, not just because of what we've done, but because of what has happened to other clubs. And it sets us up for a really big week. And that means that this game tomorrow is in an interesting situation. Mikel has, I think it's fair to say, tended, when in doubt, to lean on the players he trusts. But we saw against Brentford, he's willing to make a lot of changes if he feels he needs to make a lot of changes. Now, what makes it hard to evaluate the Brentford changes is, in the League Cup, who knows who is even available for selection. I know it's the Champions League, but I think with City losing especially, and them coming to the Emirates with us a chance to leapfrog them if we can get a win, something we have not been able to do against them in way too long, as everyone knows, in the league, do you feel that he might just take this opportunity to really change things up, go with a heavily rotated side, and try to go into that City game, not just with an extra day of rest, but even more rest, because their game's a little trickier. They probably have to play a few more players they'd rather rest. Yeah,
like I say, I'm not too worried about the starting 11 per se. It's more the ending 11, and which 5 get the half, the 2/3 game, the 60-minuters or the 70-minuters, and I think that's the key thing, to keep them all active. There's enough time between Tuesday and Sunday at 4:30 to get your rest in. Lons is just around the corner. It's probably easier to get to Lons, easier to get to Newcastle, right? So it's not a big journey. I've done it myself, and it's not a big journey. And so it's long as we're getting people off the pitch when we need to. I don't want to look too far ahead to the weekend. If we can get in control of this group early, it could benefit us into the next block after international break. So let's get in control of it. Let's get the points in the bag, and then we can start to do what you want, which is the heavily rotated teams, and start to see people develop for when we hit January, when the FA Cup comes, and we've got a really well-developed core beneath the core. That's what I'm really looking for, really. I really enjoyed the Brentford game because of that, because we were able to see people come through. So that's what I'm looking at, Elliot. I think when the game starts, we won't be looking, and the ball starts moving. We want to see our best players there, But if the game gets to a position where it's won, we want to see them off the pitch, don't we? We're all looking at tapping our watch, like almost like Dame time. Can we get this sub time? Can we get them off? Can we get them off? And then go from there. And I think that's what we're after, really. And when he makes a substitution, it's never early enough for some people. Oh, he's got an extra kick, So, but hey, look, this City will be, if we get through this one, then we can start to look at City, and we can look at the Wednesday European games. I'm looking at the City game. I'm looking at Napoli, Real Madrid. Everyone's talking about Victor Osimhen coming into the group, and let's have a look at him against a really good side and see what he looks like. That's the sort of stuff I'm looking forward to, and just enjoying how we're controlling games as a whole. Hopefully, and this continues. How we're controlling games is key. To hear the Bournemouth manager say that Arsenal are one of the best teams out there off the ball is what we would talk about last year as a main issue, and I think it's been really, really resolved up to a point. And so to see that continue, that's repeatable. That's something that really makes me excited that we're a serious team that could do something this year.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think one thing that got lost in the derby because we didn't get the result we wanted, and I think we faded a bit for a variety of reasons, including having to change out Rice and things like that, is off the ball we were extraordinary against them to start. For the first 30, 35 minutes, our press was as good as it can be. Yeah. I think there's even a level to go up from that once we're playing with the front three we can all know and name, and Rice is in there and fit, and maybe Partey's back if we need him. So I think that off the ball work will go even farther. A couple of questions I want to ask you about, Lon. So first of all, I do think since it is Tuesday, we've heard Mikel say this before, right? If they didn't play today, they would have trained, and the training would have been just as hard as the game. So there's something to be said that if you get an hour at Lens in the Champions League, that could honestly be as that could be a lighter session than the training session you might have had. You never know, right? I think there are a couple names that I'd be nervous about risking. Rice being one of them, right? Given that he's just coming back from a little something or other, and maybe just want to avoid risking aggravating it, and we have options there. But one that I'm kind of curious about, do you think we could see Partey play on Tuesday to have him as a potential option, either from the bench? I don't think he would start against City, but from the bench, is it too soon, or do you think Partey might play, get him some minutes, and have him become an option for the weekend?
Well, he's into the group today, so let's see. He's back into full training. Will he stay behind and do extra training, or will he go if he travels? But there's no point in bringing his wash bag and going over there. He might as well stay and train if he's not going to play. So if he travels, we'll soon know, right? So, and then he's got to get some minutes on the pitch, right, to sharpen up a bit of me. I wasn't expecting back until after international break. So, yeah, if he plays 2 seconds in our group, then he'll be off for international break. So, which I'm not sure I want. But Man City game is huge. It is huge, and if we can do something there, it's a big step on from last season. And again, Elliot, those points versus them are really like double points. So we do need to establish ourselves against them in the league. We haven't done that for a long time. So it's huge, but one game at a time, as they say. Don't sound like a boring pundit. One game at a time, as they say. And it is about Lons. If you lose that game, trust me, we won't talk about Man City. We talk about where are we in this group, what are we going to do, who have we lost, what's the real reasons about it. So the best way to keep this nice serenity around the team and the club is to win tomorrow. Then go into that game. And trust me, anyone who feels tired won't feel tired in that game. They'll be springing around in training for the rest of the week. They want to catch the manager's eye because they want to play. That's how it goes. They want to play in that game. The nation will be watching. They want to play. So anyone who's got a bad ankle, bad back, bad Achilles, trust me, none of that rubbish. They'll be sprinting. They'll be sprinting around to make sure they're available for that game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And look, we've got a whole week to talk about the City game. We can build up to that on the Thursday pod and beyond. So I don't want to go too deep on that. I mean, the interesting thing with the Champions League, right, is we got very lucky. Not lucky, but I think Sevilla and Lens are a cup below PSV. PSV, we obviously beaten them once already. Lens and Sevilla drew. So we're already in a very advantaged situation in this group. If somehow PSV fails to beat Sevilla and we get past Lens, like suddenly you put yourself in a position where you're angling to not really have to worry about the last game or two in the group. I know we're not there yet, but you're starting to get to that position. So obviously you want to go out and get the business done, and nothing would be less satisfying than dropping points in this game with what we've got ahead and the run we've been on. So I think if you put out a good mixed group, it should be enough. The one that I'm kind of curious about also, though, Clive, what do you think about Ramsdale? He played the League Cup, but he has not played in Champions League yet. I'm sure he'd love to get his Champions League debut. Do you think we might see Ramsdale come in? I mean, Raya's been a huge factor in, I think, how we are playing from a possession standpoint and a build-up standpoint. But I'm sure Ramsdale would love to make his Champions League debut, and this has to be one of the games that Mikel might be eyeing as a place where he could do that.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be there. Why not? Like I said, he played really well at Brentford. I thought Raya played really well at the weekend at Bournemouth. So, and with much shorter game, and he did it really well against a pressing team. So yeah, I've got no qualms with it. If he decides that Ramsdale should play in Europe, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's keep people involved. Let's keep people with the hope of playing. I do think that's important. So yeah, I'll be happy with that. I do think at the weekend, I do see Raya starting. And I said to Tim, or when Tim mentioned maybe we should have to accept that Raya's number one, I said I wasn't really ready to accept that. Well, you know what? I think Tim might be right, and we have to accept it. And when it comes down to it, every time I look at these comps going around, I can't hide what my eye's telling me. It feels like we have an extra player sometimes, and everything just settles down, and until that changes, until the body of work changes, where there's a big mistake we've got a greater body of work with Ramsdale, so we know that things can go wrong. Until that changes, everything's sunny and rose petals are on the floor with Raya because nothing's gone wrong, so he can only be good. And so we're going to the City game with the ability tactically to do so many things, and that's going to worry City. That's going to worry because they know that we've got a manager that can apply that tactical tool appropriately. That's going to worry them, and so sometimes just don't ignore the obvious. This is what's happening, and so let's see what happens.
Yeah, I would like to see Ramsdale get the start because I think in terms of just keeping the group together and finding ways to keep him connected and engaged, I think is important. I think he can do it here. I don't see it necessarily being a situation where it's going to really cost us anything. Having said that, maybe he wants to do it in the Lens game at home. I mean, there will be opportunities to give him a Champions League start, but I'd like to see him get a chance to play in the Champions League, or maybe Mikel can do, what he's been saying he's dying to do, which is sub him.
He didn't say that. He didn't say that. Don't
he said, I can't wait to sub on a goalkeeper. That's exactly what he said.
Well, we mustn't talk about Ramsdale like he's somebody with lead feet. Do you know what I mean? Suddenly his status has fallen. We mustn't do that. This guy is a top keeper. And for me, there's not much between them. And that's how I feel. And with form, this could change the other way really quickly. So yeah, I'm not going to do that to him, because I think if he plays in Europe, he deserves to play in Europe. Absolutely deserves to play. He helped us get there, right? So I hope he does get opportunity. At the weekend, I think tactically against City, I think there are more tactical options with Raya, and that's how I feel at this moment in time. So yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think it's huge drama, honestly, but I think if you can give Ramsdale this opportunity, I think it'd be great. And you're right, though. Like, Ramsdale is a serious professional. He was our number one, in the last couple of years when we've been seeing the upward trajectory of the club, and he's still a big part of this team, and he may have a big part to play in this season still as well. So we'll see. I do think it's interesting, and we won't talk about this in depth now, but the interesting thing for Raya coming up this weekend, this will be the first game where he's probably going to face some serious work as an actual goalkeeper, if you know what I mean. Stopping shots, saving chances. He's had some pretty quiet games in terms of what he's had to do. He's had a couple of big saves that he's made. He made a big save in this game, as I mentioned just before halftime, but it's mostly been about his distribution. When City come to the Emirates, it's going to demand maybe another part of his repertoire. So we'll see how he handles that, because the one thing we know in particular, like Ramsdale, I think stands out as a good 1v1 keeper. I think he does really well in the big moments. Hopefully there are no big... Look, if it all goes to plan, there won't be any big moments for City at all when they come to the Emirates, but there may just be a couple of those. Not something we can control. I think we're sort of at the end of it. Ultimately, the one last thing I'd just say, I think I'd love for us to be able, in the big game, to put out a lineup where Jesus is starting up front. Not because Nketiah did poorly in this game. I think this was one of his better games in that position in his all-around play. But when Jesus is up front, his pressing is unique, and if we can have Saka on the right, Jesus through the middle, and Trossard on the left, obviously Martinelli not available, I think that'd be a huge advantage. We just haven't had a chance to play that way. Literally, I think the only game we played that way was PSV, right? I think it's the only game Jesus has started at center forward for us this season. Is there an argument for giving that trio some time against Lens if he wants to try to use it against City, given that they just haven't played together in that setup really much this season aside from PSV?
Don't show City anything. I just want to... for me, it'd be nice to play City with as many of our best team as possible available, because that hasn't always been the case. So it'd be so good to go in there at strength, because when we get beat, no one remembers the people who are missing. So yeah, that's the excuse we always fall down on. We haven't got this player playing. It was Saliba in early in the year, and it was Partey in the home game, and we've never been able to have the spine of our team solid and available. I just want to see the best of us. If we get beat, fine. There's no problem. But I want to see the best team we can put out there. And the best time I've seen us play against them, funny enough, was a Charity Shield. We had everybody available, and we didn't get beat. So I think that's that, and I loved that day. Really loved it. So yeah, when we play them now, let's make sure we get as many of those sort of players available. Then I would be really happy that we can at least produce a performance that we'll all be proud of. But just get availability right, and if we're lucky, we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Yeah, and no silliness tomorrow. I can remember, I think we went to Braga in the Champions League and lost 2-0. Away days in the Champions League aren't easy. They just aren't. And I think there is a perception that with Lens, this would be a 10-0 even if we put out, a League Cup team, if we put out the academy kids. And I obviously do not think that's the case. So it demands the focus and the professionalism that you bring to a game. We saw in the Europa League last season, we saw in the last few seasons, if you just go there to have a jog around, it can go badly. And so I won't say trap game again, because Bournemouth definitely wasn't a trap game, although maybe Wolves was a trap game for City. And I do have to say, if you have not seen the Wolves club tweet about the Korean guy scoring, if you have not seen that, you need to check that out. Clive, I assume you have seen that?
I have seen that, yes, I have seen that. It was a funny weekend, right? And no one saw that coming. It just goes to show you, just don't look too far ahead. Just focus on the next thing. And what worries me, if you're looking for a worry, Elliot, the home games are such wonderful experiences. I worry about our emotional stability in those games, because they're just they're just roller coaster games all the time. When we go away, we just turn up solid, bang, there you go, take that, and we look so much more focused. In the home games, we just look so excited. We look as excited as the crowd are, and I need us to have a nice, steady game. But I don't think that's coming at the weekend. I just can't see that.
No. I just cannot help saying this, and I'm sorry I'm saying this. With all the City games we've played and all the hardship we've had going into City games and players missing and things going wrong for us, for once things have gone a little wrong for City. They lose to Wolves. They're missing important players. Rodri will be absent through his own stupidity. No De Bruyne. Just make sure we are in our best situation possible for that game. And we got to hope that Mikel kind of threads that needle properly to get the performance we need tomorrow, keep the guys sharp, but have everybody available for a big weekend ahead. I think we can leave it there. We're going to have a Power Rankings episode tomorrow over on Patreon, where we essentially go through the best of the rest. Arsenal, obviously the best. We'll talk about the other quote-unquote big clubs and where they stand in our estimation. Then we will have the instant reaction, obviously, as well for the Lens game. We will try to get a rewatch of the Bournemouth game, assuming that's still relevant and necessary. Otherwise, we'll talk about whatever else needs to be talked about. Main pod on Thursday. We'll obviously do something ahead of the City game on Friday, and then we'll have the instant reaction after 10-0 over City. So lots ahead. Love you for being here. Huge week for the club, and really, really looking forward to it, as I know many of you are, although maybe with a bit of trepidation. But chin up. We got this. Clive's on Twitter, @ClivePFC. Thanks, bud.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, @YankeeGunner. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, hope you're doing well. Back in the Champions League tomorrow, and then City at the weekend. Big week for the club. We love you. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10. Lons, no.